Here we are for our next episode of the Top Innovator Series. Welcome. My name is Joseph Martens. I'm your host here and the founder of the Tech Executive Club. With us today is Fernando Higuera, the CTO of HGR Industrial Surplus, a company that buys and sells surplus, really any surplus items, including machinery, manufacturing equipment, and much, much more. And before that, Fernando has been in a variety of tech executive roles in different industries. Fernando, it's great to have you in this conversation today.
Joseph, it's a pleasure being here with you. Thank you so much for inviting me to your community.
So we had a pre-chat, right? And I shared with you, we're going to talk about leadership, and I was so inspired by a lot of the energy and a lot of the thoughts that you bring to your leadership. When you look at your journey, just reflect on your journey and what are some of the success factors you would say? Clearly, very successful career. What do you attribute that success to, Fernando?
I believe it's having a vision ahead of you. Having that grit to decide, like, I'm going to reach this point. And to be meaningful in every single step that you take along the way. So the way that I will exemplify this is think about like you want to cross the Atlantic. You want to go from Europe to America or America to Europe. You know that the path is going to be rough. The waves are terrible. The wind is going to crush everything. But you need to have that vision. You have that vision to say, like, I'm going to cross it. I'm going to go to the other end. It's that grit that keeps you push forward across the waves. And when you look back, and then you see all the smooth sailing that you did. That's what has been my focus on my career. Have that hope. Hope is an amazing power tool that we all have. In being able to put that hope to motion every single day and say, like, I'm not going to stop just because today I've hit a wall. That's the grit that you need in order to move forward.
Wow, many questions bubble up in my mind now. Let me start with the one of how to share that with the team. Now, we're all tech leaders, and technologists like to dabble in details and like to get into the weeds of things. How do you get your team to see the vision, to buy into that vision, and to some extent let go of the details, probably?
It's a different change of mindset, right? For an engineering to look into the big picture rather than the nitty-gritty of the situation. In my experience, what helps my team to see that vision is when you guide them into those different steps. I'll be very clear. One example. We need to leverage infrastructure as code. DevOps it's a very powerful practice in our field. It's always changing, and it's one of the biggest bottlenecks when it comes to, hey, we need to launch and setting our infrastructure properly that it scales up in the ways that we need it to have the proper observability as well as the governance. We always lack when we do it manually. So by being with the team, instead of telling them, you gotta go and figure out how infrastructure as code works. For me, has been, hey, there's a new platform, there's a new solution called Infrastructure as Code. Let's take a look at Terraform. What are those for us? Let's terraform something very small in our sandbox. And being hands-on with them so they can experiment. And then once they start getting their hands-on into the part of the initiative that I wanted to start working on, then give them the ability to lead that. Let them ask questions. Let them break things, but most important, tell them to come back with the new learnings. Apply those learnings to what they're doing and pivot fast. So that way they own the journey and they're the captains of that ship to take us to the other end. And when they earn that, when they start having the trust from you, that you are there with them at the same time that they know that you trust them to guide them, they take extreme ownership in the process. And that is extreme ownership that we need them for them to help us do the things that we can do by ourselves. So I do believe that is giving them that ability, right? Help them to be owners of the practice, but be with them along the way. You have to teach them, you have to learn to, you have to be willing to risk it, be willing to fail. And if you fail, move fast.
Yeah. You just mentioned the term extreme ownership, and it reminds me of a book that I just read, I think a month ago or so, titled Extreme Ownership. And I don't know if you were thinking of the same book there and think back of that.
Same book.
Yeah.
So
that insight of focus on the vision and getting clarity and communicating that vision, is that something that you had from the beginning of your career, or was there an aha moment? Was there some moment where you were able to change your perspective, where you had some kind of realization and thought, this doesn't fully work what I'm doing here, but here is something that is much, much better, and that is focus on the vision?
It has been a brutal process, if I put it this way. It took so many iterations to get to that point. I learned midway in my career that doing the same old didn't work. Here is a document of the things that need to happen. It didn't work out that well. As I progressed and as I learned more outside of technology, as I learned more about psychology, as I learned more about how people think, what motivates them, what drives them, then I started adopting this principle of the three layers. We got our analytical brain, emotional brain, and then you got your reptilian brain, the why we do things. So I combine those different skill sets, and I'm pretty sure in the audience is going to start popping this light of, Simon Sinek. Everything starts with why. True, that was one of the foundationals in my leadership skills. But the second aspect of what allowed me to own it in is the opportunity that I received at Insight, it's a Fortune 500 company, to train with the U.S. Military Academy on how special forces think. I mean, we're talking about very specific, high-level, high-risk scenarios and how they navigate through that VUCA, that uncertainty, that volatility. And how do we train that level of professionals to operate? Can we apply that to our daily work? So with that, I kind of honed it into my framework. And it's a framework that I ultimately use and help us to navigate the process. Everything has a why. So for my top leadership, we explain like this is why we want to do X, Y, or Z. And then for my engineering team, this is why it matters. And this is the end state, that whether it's finance, marketing, you name the department, person, the team, or the need is, it is our job to define how we're going to achieve it. So let's put together our heads and think out about how we're going to do it. Because again, that's the extreme ownership. It is for us as a team to own the how and to deliver on the how, to put together the contingencies, to put together the plan on which we're going to deliver. And then we present back and say, like, this is how we are going to execute. We get our green flag, and then we deliver.
Yeah. You mentioned military, special military operations, right? And it made me realize the book Extreme Ownership is written by a couple of military guys, if I remember that. Yeah. I've not been to the military. My experience or my outside perspective is that it's a very clear leadership style. It's very rigorous. There's a lot of training happening in the military on leadership. And it seems to be very, very applicable in the professional world as well. Tell me a bit more about how the connection between military leadership training and in the business world, how that works, and maybe also what some of the limitations are where it doesn't work as well.
Good question. It doesn't work when we set those hard boundaries, right? Okay. There are hard boundaries for our reason in the military. But I think the distilling what works for the military into the business is clarity. Being able to have a clear message, clarity about what needs to be accomplished, your end state, and why it matters. So we do two things. We tell them this is what needs to be done and why it matters, because we really want our teams, we really want our members to be fully engaged, logged on into the mission and the value of the mission. And that's why we ask, and I ask, tell me why it matters, not just tell me what you're trying to achieve. Yes, we're trying to achieve a 5% boost in EBITDA or whatever it is. That's the end state. But why matters to the business? Is it going to move Is it going to allow us to improve our operations, be able to reduce the number of people that are working overtime? Tell me why it matters, because I want them to connect. I want them to feel 100% or even 150% connected to that ideal. That way, they can truly lock in and engage at that reptilian level, at that subconscious level of like, this is what matters for a company. And that's what I think it's the benefit of the training military, creating the clarity of
Okay.
why it matters and what the end state is, drives into the business.
Okay. Okay, got it. So that was a bit of a conversation about the past, right? Leadership journey so far. Let's talk about today. When what are some of the things that you feel like you haven't quite cracked yet in your leadership journey? So what are some of the things where you get a sense of, this is a good tool, this would be helpful, wouldn't it be great if this and this happened, but you feel like you're not quite at the mastery level yet?
Boy, there's so many things that I need to be enhanced there. And so many things that I put my hand on. I do think that nowadays we are, as engineering team, we're faced with this scenario where AI is casting a shadow on us about, is it going to take my job? Is it going to replace me? I mean, and it happens because organizations just saw the value of like, well, if we just hire AI, I mean, if we deploy AI, we can actually handle more at scale. We can do more things with less people. But that truly is not the nature of AI. Really, I mean, AI is not here to replace us. AI is here to augment our capacities. We are the ones that put a man on the moon, and we're the ones that are going to put another man in another solar system. AI is just going to allow us to do that. The part that I'm trying to master is, how can we go from the traditional like supporting Gen AI on just helping you do things here and there to be more fully engraved into your everyday scenario, right? Like, how can I have another person, another me that can handle more things on the side while I'm concentrated on doing, like a personal task? And then meanwhile, my other me is handling the business side of the thing. We're far from it. And I've seen a couple of products, a couple of solutions that they claim to do that, but they are far from meeting the target, because again, it's just, you just throw in we're just using an API to connect to OpenAI or ChatGPT and handle questions and learn a little bit. There's so much more. It's just like an iceberg. There's so much more underneath it that is not even scratched by the product itself. That's the area that I'm trying to learn more about. Like, how can I create the same mindset that I have on communicating with people to create this clarity in the vision, right? Like, why it matters, what the end state is. So that way, when this autonomous agent communicates to other members of the organization, it truly is an extension of me. That's the part that I'm working on. Like, how do I add those levels, right? Because you got NLPs and you got the generators supporting your ChatGPT, your transformers, sorry. But then we have a psychological level that we as humans have it, but the machine cannot have it. So how do you translate that into a machine to process, to leverage, to utilize it?
How do you feel about that prospect?
It's scary. It's a scary prospect, but at the same time,
appreciate the honesty here. Yeah.
I mean, just imagine like a machine that can understand and can truly sense your feeling and be able to change your mood. I think it's a double-edged sword, right? From 2022, 2023, actually, 24, that we saw the major layoffs on all tech companies, really, like the thousands of engineers laid off. Many of us, we felt that we needed to, I mean, we were stuck in a situation like we can't find a job or things happen, and we needed a tool. And I think that that's the part that AI could help us, that we can communicate, tell our problems, and be a listening ear, that we can just have those conversations and guide us. But once you start layering in the ability to truly understand emotions and psychology and what goes behind this in neuropsychology, neurology, and then have the AI being able to manipulate that, that's scary because now it can start generating messages and content that truly is subliminal to to your mind. Again, double edge. It's a beautiful thing, but it's a scary thing.
Yeah, yeah. Let's go back to your leadership journey and let's take a peek into the future or speculate about the future. So this is not a question about positions, titles, or companies or anything like this. It's a question about you. Where do you see your leadership journey be in the next 5-10 years? So again, not position, but when you think of yourself as a leader, how will Fernando in 5 years or 10 years be a different leader? What will have changed then? What will have expanded or leveled up or grown from where you are today?
I believe that I will see it more with every year in leadership. I see myself getting more and more polished. My early years in leadership were, as anybody else will expect, right? Like we're learning, we're adapting.
Yeah.
But I see myself more improving my advisory abilities to teams, not just in engineering, but advising in other areas of the business on here's how we can transform. And I've done that before in consulting on how innovation transformed the business itself. But I want to set aside the innovation on its own. I want to transform truly at the core of every single human. I'm very interested on what goes behind our brains and our minds and how it works and what makes it click. And I believe that if I can just help discover those patterns and use that to empower other teams to leverage their capabilities really and to be the next version of themselves, that's my goal. That's my next horizon. Like that's what I want to do.
Okay, got it. One last question for you, Fernando, and then we're going to land the plane. What is something that you have discovered in your leadership journey that is clear to you? You've seen it, you've realized it, you know that this thing is there, and you also notice that many other people do not have that insight. So something that might be a blind spot for many, but because of experience or because of what you've done, you have that aha moment, you see it, and it's clear to you. What is something like that?
I believe it's the ability to create your own blueprints. I created my own blueprint. I didn't wait for anybody to tell me, you got to take a turn to left here, you got to go into this career, you have to take this classes, or you have to take this different roles to get where you want to be. You're the master, you're the commander of your ship. You're the master of your fate.
Mm-hmm.
So craft your own blueprint. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the future has for me. None of us do. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the future has ahead of me. I don't even know what we're going to do tomorrow.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be alive tomorrow.
Yeah.
But the point is, set your blueprint, because that blueprint is going to be your North Star. Yeah. Where do you see yourselves? Who's when you ask your 5-year-old inside or your 8-year-old inside of you, like, is he going to be proud of myself? And when you look at yourself being in your 80s, 90-year-old person, am I going to be proud of what I accomplished? Then you set course for your blueprint. And where do you start seeing those different steps is where you want to start guiding it. And you're not shooting in the dark. You're just setting that specific blueprint for you. Whatever worked for me may not work for everybody else. But again, it is that blueprint that helped me guide my own journey.
Yeah, that is powerful. That is really powerful, right? That realization that we are really creating the world in which we live. And it goes back to the extreme ownership message, right? It means taking ownership of our life and really shaping that. Fernando, this has been an awesome conversation. Thank you so much for being here today. Things that will stick with me is that clear focus on the vision and at the end, the ownership. Absolutely love that, Fernando. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Of course, I appreciate the invitation.
For everyone else who joined us, thank you so much for being here today. I hope to see you again at the next podcast. And until then, keep your brain cells active.